everybody, Anna Sabramwoods here, and I help people create interactive learning episodes and also answer some questions about how to do that really well. Thank you so much for joining me for this live. I hope you're having a fabulous day wherever you are. And yes, it is Easter, but I thought I'd take a little bit of a time out because I wanted to share an important message with you. And this message comes from the discussions that I've had this year really with professionals or people who are trying to take themselves to the next level. And so one of the things that I wanted to really share with you today is the fact that if you have some habits, let's say one of the habits is that you always have to ask permission about doing something, then asking permission to act is always going to be your default. And that default will actually, believe it or not, jump into other areas of your life. So let me give you an example of how this actually can be either you decide a good or a bad thing. So I had a strategy session with a fabulous human being 2 weeks ago. And she said to me, you know, I want to participate, but one of the things that's holding me back is that my boss is going to be approving this request because I want to use it as part of my professional development. So I'll get back to you with that. And I said, okay, sure, that's fine. We have limited seating, so I said, you know, you have a time left. And she got back to me this week and she said, you know what? One of the things that happened is my boss did not think it would fit this year into the budget as far as professional development for me. So I will have to wait until potentially next year for her to approve this request. And I thought about that. And one of the things that, you know, it's not, I work for myself, so it's easy for me to say, hey, you know what? I see this opportunity, I'm going to go for it, and it's going to be an investment in me. But this is why I think, and I've worked in academia and I've worked in the corporate sector, so I know exactly how this works. Well, what happens is we end up asking permission for everything that is related to us without seeing it as really an investment in ourselves. So imagine this. Imagine somebody working at a gas station, and one day they come home and they're like, yeah, I never became the accountant or the doctor or anything because the guy who ran the gas station wouldn't approve for me to go to school. So I just had to stay at the gas station. Now that sounds completely ridiculous, right? You'd be like, well, why didn't you just like go to night school or save up the money and go, take some courses so you could actually be whoever you want to be? Or why did you not apprentice with somebody if you wanted to be an electrician, whatever? So one of the things I'm saying is that if you are waiting for somebody else to see your value, it's not going to happen. Because if you don't see your own value, if you don't see yourself as a great investment, how are you expecting somebody else to do that? And I remember actually working with people on their resumes, this is a couple of years back, and over the years they were like transitioning to a new job. And they weren't even an instructional designer. They were just like a friend who I was helping. And they had been at this job, was it 5 years at least? It was over 5 years. And so I asked this person, I said, what are some of the educational opportunities? What are some ways that you've upskilled yourself in this job, right? And they said, well, we really didn't have any upskilling opportunities. Like our job didn't have that. Our boss wouldn't pay for anything like that. And I thought to myself, you're looking at a new job now. You're looking to like really show that you've grown over the past 5 years. But if you don't take that initiative yourself, like they're not going to go back to your boss and be like, oh, it's okay because that person wouldn't pay for you to upskill yourself. It has to be something that you want. It has to be something that you invest in, right? So I'm like, okay, so for the past 5 years, it kind of looks like you didn't really do anything important other than just like do the job, which is okay. But if you want to actually get paid more and actually be seen as somebody who's a go-getter, you can't say, well, my past boss was, he wasn't really into professional development. That's like, nobody's going to care about that. They're going to say, well, why didn't you take some action, right? So the thing that I found just I wanted to help this person. So I said, if there is a budget or something, then I can jump on the call. But then I thought, no, this isn't about the boss. This isn't about somebody else, because that's one of the things that happens. So I had this, this was so funny because I had a conversation with my husband, and this was a while back, but he's like, you're kind of in the habit of asking permission for things that you should just be like, this is me, this is mine, go for it. And I thought about that, and I was like, why does that happen to me? Why do I shouldn't be saying, is this okay? Is this cool? Are you okay with this? Like, there definitely is courtesy, but you can take courtesy to like the wrong level, where you're basically asking somebody else to be in charge, which also means that if something doesn't work out, you don't have to take responsibility for it. And I thought, well, that's not the kind of person I want to be. I want to be the kind of person who like owns the situation, owns my decision, and is 100% like, if something happens, I was part of that. At least the way I did everything I could to influence it in the way that I wanted it to work out, right? And so I thought, why am I doing this? And then I looked at, are there other places where I'm doing that? And guess what? Of course, I'd walk into like team meetings and I'd be asking everybody permission if they would be okay with me taking this approach, if they would be okay with this. And the thing is, there's a way to leverage those two things. We're talking about collaboration, and there's a way to do that effectively, but then there's also this idea of being kind of a doormat, right? And so if you keep on making concessions at home, at work, with your friends, with your colleagues, it kind of trickles down. And then when something is important to you, then it also translates into you not being able to really ask for the things that you want, because you think that you always have to ask permission first, because you've set up that pattern in your life. So the point of me talking to you today is really just to make sure that you understand that the only person who's going to really take care of you is you. And the only reason people will recognize you as somebody to care about is if they see that you're the person who takes care of yourself first. And so if you do that, if you take that action to basically become the person you want by taking action and asking for what you want, and when you don't get it, doing everything else that you can so that you can, that's the best. That's going to give you, even if those are small baby steps, like today I'm going to decide I'm going to do this, and it's a small thing, but today maybe I decide that today I'm going to make my desk clean, and I'm going to own this space, and I'm going to make it a success space, right? Those kinds of small actions change your beliefs about yourself, and those are the small actions that help you gain momentum so that when some bigger decisions come up, you can do that. If you continue making concessions, even on the small things, they add up. And I worked with a lady years ago, she's a fabulous human, and she said, if you say sorry to people every day, and you say it a lot, then, because Canadians are apparently really bad at this, we'll say sorry, like I'll bump into somebody and I'll be like, sorry, or no, somebody will bump into me and I'll apologize to them, right? But she said, you have to stop saying sorry, because at the end of the day, then you'll end up feeling sorry, like there's something wrong. And I agree with this, but it is small little actions that every day add up to these habits and to these ways that we believe we are and the things that we deserve, right? So every day you have to start saying no to things or saying yes to things, but being very credible with what it takes to make them happen. So you're not a doormat anymore, and you are starting to ask for the things that matter to you. And so you're no longer asking permission. You're saying, here's the things that I'm willing to do. Here's the things that I deserve. What can we do to make that happen? So instead of constantly being the person who asks for somebody else to invest in you, who being the kind of person who has to get permission from somebody else to shine, now you can be the kind of person who invests in themselves first, makes decisions for themselves first. And it's kind of like that whole idea, when you get on a plane and they walk through the safety that safety protocol, and they say, you know, when the masks, air masks, come down, the mask that you're supposed to put on first is your own, and then you're supposed to put on like the child's or the next person next to you who wasn't able to grab the mask first, because you can't help other people. You can't create things and be helpful to other people if you don't recognize that you're one of the people you need to help first. So you can't be a martyr, because martyrs don't, basically what ends up being, most of the people that I know who are, as we say, martyrs, they basically end up being bitter because nobody else recognizes that they are sacrificing so much for everybody else. You don't want to be in that position. You want to be in the position where you're shining so brightly that everybody else is saying, hey, you know what? That's such good positive energy, and this person cares about taking care of themselves so they can now take care of other people. I want to shine like that. So instead of being the doormat, instead of constantly coming out with a cup saying, please, please, and begging, you're actually owning the situation. You're demanding in the best way possible what you need. And those are things that you take, those are small steps you take every single day. So this isn't something like, you don't have to wait for a major event to ask for things to move in your, to ask for things that you need. It can be during your next meeting. Instead of coming in saying, how do you guys feel about this? As in asking permission, saying, here's an idea that I have. I've done some research, I've done some thinking, I've found some examples. I think this is the best way to go. If you have something that is comparable to the amount of work and research that I've done in this area of learning, then definitely bring it my way. But as I look around this room, basically my idea is to bring this to light, and you can contribute your ideas based on your expertise. And that's the way we have to be as learning designers. We have to come in knowing that space, owning that space, being comfortable with it, knowing you have to you are adding value to that equation. Be the best, take the time to get to the next level, but also when you're there, freaking deliver. Don't be afraid of it. And if you're challenged, good. That means that, you know, people are thinking about what you're saying. They're not dismissing you, but also that you have something to show back that you've done. So hopefully that was a helpful message and you enjoyed it. And it will be a little bit of a kick in the butt so that you can get yourself to the next level by realizing that these small habits, they affect other places. How you do one thing is how you do everything. So make sure that you're not being a pushover and you're asking for the things that you need, because eventually what happens is if you keep on making concessions, it will eat away at you and it'll probably make you very upset and bitter. And one day you'll just break down and quit or something. So I want you to avoid that big piece, and I want you to actually just make small steps towards being exactly where you want to be and asking for things that you want. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of the Sunday today, and I hope you join me next time. In the meantime, I do have a cohort happening in May, on May 21st. We are getting together a whole bunch of awesome individuals who really want to take themselves to the next level and don't need to ask permission anymore. They just want to get to the next level. They've made the decision. So I'll put a link underneath the video so that you can join us for that and book a session. All right. Hi, Peter. Now, I did say, being your own boss this year was the title of this session. And what I wanted you to understand is that you don't always have to be your own boss. So a lot of people talk to me about, hey, I want to be a freelancer one day. And there's pros and cons to that, right? You have to do a lot of different kind of work when you're a freelancer. And I don't think a lot of us understand what it takes to actually run a whole business as a person who's independent. But also the other thing is that sometimes what's wonderful about working for an organization is that you can really become an expert in a single thing and have a team augment your skill set, which is just amazing. There's a lot of places that, the only way you'd be able to use the technology and create the kind of products that you produce is because you are part of a larger team that's able to fund that. But when I said, being your own boss this year, really what I was talking about is the idea that you don't have to wait for somebody above you to make a decision for you if you want to upskill yourself. If your company doesn't offer VR, that doesn't mean you cannot learn about it. If your company doesn't offer extra courses in a particular software or a skill set that you want, you can be your own boss in that respect and actually invest that time in the evenings, on the weekends, to be able to get that done. So a lot of times you can really make yourself a lot more valuable because you've decided to make that choice. It's not, nobody else is going to do that for you. Some people have great bosses and resources that they can just be like, listen, I want to upskill, and they see that as a value. The boss sees it as a value to the company. But in the end, all of this is for you. And if you see that value, even if nobody else does, that will pay dividends towards your personal career and growth. It won't be something that somebody else gets to decide, because if somebody else is deciding, then that means you haven't really invested in yourself. So make sure that you're on the right page with yourself. You're acting as your own boss, as your own best caretaker, and then the rest is just bonus. All right, so I hope you have a fabulous rest of the Sunday. Thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Hi, Sanju. And thank you, Peter. And I will talk to you guys next week. All right, have a wonderful rest of the day. Cheers. Bye.